Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Legends of Tomorrow. A great episode, a lot of interesting things to break down. Obviously, we're kind of picking up with Mona's situation because she's getting blamed for the copay getting away. And I love that Gary shows up of like, how could you do this to us? And he gets his memory wiped. It seems like later on his memory kind of came back, so I guess it was like a temporary blank, or were they able to kind of bring it back? Because it seemed like for a little while he completely forgot. I mean, to be fair, Mona hit him with it a couple of times, and I love he shows up later on with the hospital gown on, and he's like, "Where's my nipple? Where's my nipple?" It's like poor Gary gonna have to remember that situation all over again. But you know. Once he remembers, he'll laugh about the whole having his nipple bitten off by a unicorn. We'll all laugh about it again. I just love it. But a lot of interesting things went down. Obviously, like, you know, Copay gets sent to New Mexico by 1961 by Mona, and I love that. Oh yeah, like, there everyone's there, like, okay, we'll talk, and then all of a sudden comes out Mick. He shoots her, and he's like, what kind of gun is this? And like, luckily it was a like tranquilizer or whatever, but it's like. You have Ray being like, wait, were you trying to shoot her? I also love a little bit about like Ray also getting like everyone signing it. So it's like, hey, so when Sarah's away, I'm kind of intern captain for a bit. And obviously you can tell what those two extra words were that was scrawled out of Mick's message, him when he signed it. So. But a lot of interesting things, because obviously Zari's the one to go like, hey, maybe we should listen to this whole Mona situation. So she goes looking into it and inform, you know, her and Nate end up discovering his dad is behind it. So it's like that whole aspect of this whole situation is starting to slowly unravel. There was that little thing too between him and Zari where it's like, she's like, okay, I'll go with you to this benefit so we can steal your dad's home. But it's like, we're not going to have to pretend to be like boyfriend and girlfriend. And he's like, no, like us together, such a weird couple. It's like, what's that supposed to mean? Is that like because I feel like that was a reference to something. I don't know whether it's like, maybe that's like a fan thing that a lot of fans want Zari and Nate together. Maybe people ship that. I don't know. Or is it a thing of like in the comic books they're a couple? Or are they dating in real life? You know, because I don't try to get into actors' personal lives, so I don't know if that's supposed to be like a wink and nod. I mean, once again, I always go back to it. It's like the whole like, Ray and Nora thing, just because, you know, Brandon Routh and Courtney Ford are married in real life, so it's just kind of like one of those things of like, oh, putting it together actually is very, you know, befitting and delicate. So that's why I'm wondering if it's something like that or not. I mean, especially because Nate does kind of have to move on just because of the whole like Maya isn't coming back type of thing, even though Charlie makes that whole thing a little bit complicated, but you get what I'm trying to say. But nevertheless, so I do love that his mom is like, oh, Zari, such a pretty name for such a pretty woman with, what was it? Good birthing hips, essentially. And it's just like, yeah, that just made this awkward. And even when that was all said and done, Nate's like, are you blushing? She's like, what? Shut up. Which I'm wondering, is there something there? Because like I said, I don't know, like, has there been hints to that or something? I don't remember there really being hints to that, but I guess, like, well, they're both single on the team, so that's not too much of a stretch. So, but nevertheless, you do have Nate confronting his dad, but it's like, oh, just let me know ahead of time what's going on, Dad. I want to, you know, be in the know with all of this. So it turns out to be a situation, it seems like Nate's going to be playing along with his dad, because basically Zari's going to be digging deeper into the whole situation to try and figure out what his dad's really, you know, what Hank's really up to. And I think, you know, Nate's going to be the insider with all of this, making his dad think, oh, I'm on your side, which sucks, you know, because, you know, and I brought that up way before. It's like, Hank and Nate were finally on good terms, and now it's just kind of like he sees his dad. It's just kind of like, now I think it's worse than ever because he sees his dad is up to something. He doesn't know what it is, but the way his dad's going about things, it's like, yeah, it's not good, you know. Which this whole situation in itself leads to a problem between Sarah and Ava. Because Sarah's trying to warn Ava, but obviously, like, a lot of miscommunication. At first, it seems like it's purely miscommunication. It's like, oh, you have to hang up on her. You're trying to tell her, like, oh, yeah, there's some conspiracy going on at the Time Bureau. But Ava didn't want to listen. Because at first, I was like, okay, Ava's kind of a stickler for the rules. So it's obviously, this is kind of like the whole, like, oh, yeah, like, Sarah being kind of the free spirit that she is, combined with, you know, Ava being kind of like sticker for the rules, that of course, like, those, you know, it would cause problems. But now it seems like it's not even just that, because Ava's like, oh, I thought I'd have you in my corner. Like, so it has become personal. But Sarah's like, no, I'm trying to do the right thing. Hank is not. It's like, who cares what Hank is doing? It's like, the fact of the matter is, if he has to rough up some of these supernatural creatures so we can battle them, so what? The fact is, they should, they should be treated this way, because who cares? They're not supposed to exist. The moment she said that, I was like, isn't it a little ironic coming from you? It's super messed up to say, but are you kind of forgetting the fact is you're a clone? And so that's why I'm like, it's super insensitive for you to talk about someone that shouldn't exist. So it's like, you're kind of being a hypocrite there. I mean, because it's like, oh, you're saying like these supernatural creatures are bad. It's like, well, yeah, the legends did deal with like the first group like that, but eventually they realized like, no, it's more than just, we can't just kill them or just send them to like, because they've dealt with them in certain regards like that, sure, when the time has come for it. But since Charlie's joined the team, they've kind of realized like there is another way with all of this. That the fact of the matter is, some of these supernatural creatures aren't bad people. They're just kind of misplaced. Certain circumstances led them. Yes, some of them are bad, but do we really have the right to outright kill them? Because that same mentality you have could end up ending with Charlie getting taken as well, and it's like I think it's going to get to that point where they're going to have to fight to keep Charlie safe, because she is a shapeshifter. There's not many of those around. She was probably the only one that was in that prison with Mollis. So now it turns into a situation they'll eventually want her, because like her abilities to shapeshift. Like, because I'm assuming like the grand scheme of all this, because obviously we know this deals with the thing inside of Desmond. I'm blanking on that demon's name, but obviously this is about it, because obviously Hank thinks this is his thing, because he wants to kind of weaponize it, and it's like, oh, we can do, like in his mind he thinks he is doing good, but all he's doing is playing in the Desmond, the thing inside of Desmond's hands. And I think when it's all said and done, he's going to take every supernatural creature that they find and absorb it and gain their powers. So if he gains the powers of Charlie, be able to start shape-shifting, but along with the powers of every other supernatural creature. I think that's what the plan is. Not unless the ultimate plan is to basically gather up an army to use as your own, like not necessarily absorb them, but have them basically be your weapons to fight, when the time comes. So that could potentially be another route. But it's a shame that everything's come down to, because for Ava, it's like the Time Bureau, we can't take the chance to piss Hank off because the Time Bureau is so necessary. And Sarah's like, well, the fact is he can't control us, the legend. She's like, oh, here you go, making everything about you. The fact of the matter is, there's so much dependent on this for Ava. It's like, if this gets pulled out, then like this is all for naught, essentially, because like, especially because the Time Bureau was Rip's thing. So maybe on some level she feels like if it's gone, that's also like, there's a part of Rip that's no longer here too. So maybe that's her way of keeping it alive. But also because Ava does legitimately think it's the right thing. But that is kind of messed up that she thinks like, torturing creatures and stuff like that, it's kind of the okay route to take in this. Like, I guess she's so desperate to hold on to this, like, because this is something that is her own, that maybe she feels like outside of it she doesn't really know who she is, because maybe being Ava, who works for the Time Bureau, has been the identity she's linked up to. So anyone threatening that Time Bureau, threatening the life she's built for herself, especially considering her whole life as a construct, that this life is the one life she chose for herself, essentially. This is hers. Out of everything in her life, this is hers, and she thought Sarah was hers, but now it's this complicated thing, and now they've broken up, which is such a shame. Come on, Avalanche, come on. That sucks, dude. Because I would have thought, like, the moment it's like, no, Hank's behind all this, that Ava would have changed her tune, but no, it's not going to happen until she realizes that something more deadly is at play here, because she just thinks Hank's got his reasons for doing this. And like I said, I think she's just excusing it just for her own reasons, like her own fear of just kind of losing all of this. I think that's what her real motivation is. We'll ultimately have to wait and see, though. I'm circling back around. I do apologize. I love that Charlie and John were able to convince Ray, like, no, let's go back to Mexico and fix the timeline and everything. It's like, he's like, no, but Sarah says stand for, oh, come on, Ray. They're like, come on, Ray. Ray moved to rage. And it's like, and he gets suckered into it. I love it. But another thing I liked was like, obviously, John apparently is super into wrestling, because like this particular luchador that was there is someone like, I was like, oh, I grew up watching your movies, but obviously with the Cope there, it's kind of living this life. Oh, also, side note, did that come up before about or is this the first time Mona's brought up the fact is that the Kopei is a demigod? That was interesting. I mean, maybe she has brought it up before. I mean, to be fair, she has gotten closer to him than anyone else. Side note, I had to bring this up too, because I kept, like, obviously, like, I brought it up earlier in the season, but the actress who plays Mona, she also plays a character named Ramona in Santa Clarita Diet. And I was, obviously, season 3 literally came out a couple days ago, and I saw her again, and I think I was talking to my review. I was like, I could not remember what the other show I saw that actress in, and I was like, that's what it is. It's so cool seeing her in this, but I'll get to Mona's situation in a little bit, but I thought it was kind of interesting. Obviously, like, she starts referencing stuff from the book that Mick wrote, and he's like, oh, you mean this and that? And she's like, hey, you know about this book? You read it? He's like, I've heard of it. I'm like, dude, that's so good. It's so funny, because even later on, because he brings up the whole thing of, like, Mona wants to, be off with the Kopei, but it's like, he basically is like, yeah, referencing the characters from the book, it's like, they couldn't be together just because they come from 2 different worlds. They will always love each other, but it just won't work out like that. There is no happy ending in that. And she's like, how do you know this next book isn't even positive? He's like, I just know. And it's like, I love that. To me, I feel like his books are becoming the next Bebo, because Bebo, you still pop up quite a bit, like you'll see reference here and there throughout the Arrowverse, but I hope we get to see more, because like the only other time I've seen his books come like a pop up in the Arrowverse outside of Legends, I don't know if they've popped up in Arrow, maybe I've missed them, but I do know that time Barry, like, because I referenced it when Barry was phasing out of control and they had to lock him up in the pipeline, he kept himself busy by reading one of Mick's books. Like, apparently the Legends dropped it off for him. I'm like, dude, please tell me we're gonna get that on Earth 38. It's gonna be like Kara or somebody reading a book. It's like, I don't know where this book came from. I'm like, let his book be not only across time and shows, let it also be across Earths. I want this book to exist across the multiverse. That'd be so interesting. I mean, who's to say, like, Mick isn't some established author in a different Earth or something like that. Everyone leads different lives in these different, dimensions and stuff like that. But I thought that was kind of a neat little thing. Oh, almost forgot about Gary's line when, like, when Sarah was calling Ava and is like, oh, do you want me to send this to your personal phone? Because it might be like a, just in case it's, she's like, Gary. Just like, I just love their dynamic. Ava and Gary saying something stupid, and Ava just basically have to almost basically not actually slapping him, but basically slapping him to be like, "Shut up, Gary." I don't know. I love that. But the sad thing is, when it was all said and done, someone showed up. Like, Mona was going to tell him, like, to go on his own. It's like, we're from 2 different worlds, and like, I want to be a part of your world, but if I went with you, it'd just be me running away from everything in my world, and that's not the best reason to run away. Because we kind of got introduced to her family and everything, kind of the complicated relationship she has with them. Because it seems like even her mom doesn't even directly talk to her. Like, when her mom's complaining, it seems like her mom talks to her dad. Even goes as far as being like, oh, it's your fault that things have kind of turned out like this, but neither one of her parents really want to listen to her. I mean, it's not like she can tell them everything that's going down anyway. But what was interesting, though, is like when he gets killed, sadly, at the end, which sucks because he's about to be set free and stuff like that. And I don't know whether that's an agent. I'm assuming that's an agent that Ava sent, so that's kind of on her. That blood is on her hands to a certain extent. Because Hank wanted it captured. Not unless that, well, because he needed it captured, he didn't want it dead. Like, he could still make use of it, but in that moment, Mona transforms. Because I figured from this point, I was like, is she going to join the Legends? Because she can't go back to the Time Bureau, especially with everything kind of framing her to be the reason behind everything. Even though the Legends know the truth, the fact is that Ava isn't really willing to see that, and I doubt Mona want to go back working with Ava, especially if she feels like Ava looks at things that way. So, but we see Mona transform, so I'm like, oh, so does the Kopei have like a werewolf thing going on where basically if it scratches you, it transforms you? Which also, that thing's a demigod, so it's like, I guess demigod things work, depending on the mythology, it works a little differently, but I guess in her case, like, she's part demigod now? Maybe? I don't know. But it looks like if she loses control, she transforms, because she apparently ripped into that agent, blood splatter against a tree like that, and she told Rory, it's like, it's just like you said, there's no such thing as happy endings. It kind of breaks your heart. But I think we're going to see her joining the Legends, potentially. That'd definitely be interesting. I just wanted these kids to have Mona around more. Oh, that'd be so dope. Like I said, it's going to be interesting to see what they end up doing with that, especially because I think we're going to have, especially with what they've already set up, we might have Mona kind of being like mixed partner in crime going forward. Which, you know, obviously he's had different ones. He had Snart, he has Ray, you know, haircut. You know, that ends up being a thing quite often. It's also interesting, like all the different duos, like Ray and Nate, you know, being a team. And it seems like we're getting, you know, more Charlie and Constantine, so that's interesting. Another thing to bring up about this episode is obviously everything that did go down in New Mexico. I love it. Like, they're training the dude to try and win, but the Cope kept winning each time until Mona kind of, it's like, yeah, you're essentially a king and you don't want to lose because it's never lost. But, you know, when the time came, I like that wrestling scene at the end was so hype. Like Charlie on the microphone, you know, kind of getting everyone riled up, like fights brawling out and stuff like that, and the luchador performing his move on the dude in the ring. It was so dope. Him and you know, the Cope like standing side by side at the end. That was, you know, it you know, obviously there's like a bittersweetness to that now, but still, it was pretty neat, you know. Like I said, it kind of made you go, yeah. Like, it was like a major hypeness, you know, so that was really interesting. So, like I said, it's kind of sad, like, so much ended up playing out the way it did. Like, kind of everyone kind of walked away from this episode a little sadder. You know, Mona going through what she's going through, Ava and Sarah breaking up, Nate finding out about the truth, at least partially about his dad. You know, like things are going to get complicated for John, because John took some steps forward, but now it's going to be a situation of like, yeah, finding out that the thing inside of Desmond is behind all of this too. So it's just going to add layer upon layer of complicatedness. So I'm very interested. But I mean, like, you know, obviously, you know, really quickly, obviously, like I was bringing up earlier, the whole Zari and Nate thing, whether that becomes a thing or not, that's definitely going to be interesting too. So I am very, very, very happy to have Legends of Tomorrow back. I am so excited to see what the rest of this season has in store for us as everything ends up progressing. I hope Ava changes her mind, and I think she will, but things are probably going to get worse before they get better in certain regards. So I'm very, like I said, I'm very curious to see also where like Mona plays in all of this, like what's going to end up happening to her. Will they not know about her transformations for a while, where she just seemed like normal old Mona or something? We'll just ultimately have to wait and see. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good